that the national budget is 100,000 crore taka. So every year we lose 30,000 crore taka to 50,000 crore taka of asset. We lose, economically this amount of money every year due to flood. And if we invest 2,000-3,000 crore taka every year for dredging of the rivers, the loss will be reduced to 5,000 crore per year, or 10,000 crore will be reduced to 1/3 or 1/4. So we are giving emphasis on that. And the other issue, due to the sea level rise, Bangladesh, due to its, despite its, limited capacity, despite having poverty and many other issues to be addressed, but still we are trying to address this issue despite we have the limited resource. How? We are successful in inventing crops which are drought resilient, salinity resilient, and flood resilient. And at the same time, we are trying to make our people already, their master of survival, and how we are trying to improve their resilience. And that's why we are trying to improve the capacity at the village level, so that when there is, in times of necessity, when there is flood, when there is a cyclone, or when there is storm, from the national level, aid needs to go. Aid cannot be given immediately. So immediate response could be given by the local authority. So that's why we are trying to improve the capacity of the local authorities. And in this way, we are trying to improve the resilience of the communities. And at the same time, the attitude of the people. In the past, as I said in my presentation, in my opening remarks, that in the past we had the attitude to prevent the natural calamities. Now we are trying to motivate the people, and that is the, we are trying to motivate the people to live with the natural calamities. And in the national planning also, we are doing our national planning in that direction. And
I just want to bring in Mary Chinery-Hesse at this point. Bangladesh is so much at the forefront of climate change. They have to deal with this daily. In Ghana, that hasn't been the case. You haven't had to deal with this kind of freakishness very much in the past. Are attitudes changing now? Are priorities changing, therefore? When resources are constrained, you have to decide where you're going to spend them to make communities more resilient.
Yeah, thank you very much. Of course, we're talking about flooding. In this particular part of Ghana, I've been talking about the north. In the past, what we had feared in terms of the impact of climate change was desertification. So that is also taking place at the same time. So the challenges are there. As I see it, then the people somehow manage their life along a predictable cycle. What is happening recently is the unpredictability. Things they don't know whether it's going to rain tomorrow, next week. This confusion. And what it is leading to is exacerbating poverty. So I don't think we can leave that out of the equation. When people move, it's not necessarily because of the floods and so on. It's because they couldn't plant, etc., and they want a better life. So they move to places where they think they can get a better life, where they can predict the farming cycle, where they can get some alternative employment. And therefore, I think basically we should also be talking about a change in the pattern of development. And sometimes when I have listened to the debates in respect of climate change, I get the impression that with a lot of goodwill, we are still tinkering and not tackling in a fundamental way, instituting a coping mechanism which will mean that you minimize the impact. I say this because, for example, when we had the flood in the north, we saw that it was going to be impossible for us to handle when the river was going to overflow its banks. So the focus was move the people out of the floodplain. How do you do that? By creating some other opportunities elsewhere. You can't force them up. Relocate the schools, for example, during reconstruction. Put them where you minimize the risk of the river affecting them, etc. You just think through, and you see what I'm saying about infrastructure. For example, improve the irrigation system in a manner that they will see clearly it's not necessary to move into the floodplain to farm, and things like that. So a more fundamental look for a problem we are going to live with until we get a reversion. And I think myself that this has to be factored in more strongly in the international debate. And
Mary,
this is
thank
why
you. I can see both Serena and John nodding their heads vigorously.
Let me just add one thing.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Which is why I really think that we have to mainstream the issue of the impact of climate change. We shouldn't treat it necessarily as a separate topic all the time. Of course, when you have a disaster, you handle it. But the coping should involve making sure that all of your development agenda accepts the fact that the train has taken off, the horse has bolted. You are trying to pull things back, but in the meanwhile, this is a situation maybe for the next 50 years, and you change your pattern of thinking along those lines. Thank you.
If it isn't too late. Thank you, Mary. John, you were going to jump in there, weren't you?
Well, I just wanted to jump in on 2 points, really, that were being made. The first is that this unpredictable impact of climate change that's already happening. I mean, I spoke to several countries at this global platform meeting I was talking about last week and said, why are you here? Countries from Africa, and Namibia is one example. And they said, we're here because our climate has changed. We never had floods before. We had drought. We never had floods. Now we have floods. We need to know what to do. We need to go and find out what other people are doing. Very simple point. The other more important point is just emphasize what was being said too. It is about mainstreaming. In other words, all development should now include disaster risk reduction, adaptation to climate change intrinsically as part of it. It's not an add-on. It should be built in right at the beginning. And that's the message we're trying to give.
And is it happening, do you think?
Beginning to. People accept the principle, they don't do it in practice, but at least the awareness is beginning to be there, but it takes quite a revolution to make it happen in reality.
Okay. Shirin, I wanted to ask you, has what happened in Myanmar, Cyclone Nargis, I mean, it could have happened somewhere else. Has it worked as a kind of wake-up call in the ASEAN region, do you think? Other areas are beginning to think, what on earth can we do to be better prepared and divert resources to be more prepared?